Salinas. I am the Outreach Coordinator with the Waukesha County Green Team. For those of you new to us, we are a volunteer-based nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we're focused on promoting environmental sustainability in Waukesha County communities through education, collaboration, and local action. If you're unfamiliar with Waukesha County, we are located just to the west of Milwaukee County here in Wisconsin, and we just got deluged with so much rain, I can't even tell you. But we are excited to gather all of you here this afternoon for this great presentation that's put on in collaboration with the Green Neighbor Challenge. So this webinar is part of our Electrify Your Life series, where we help residents navigate the process of incorporating home energy upgrades into their lives. And we're hosting it on behalf of a network of nonprofits working throughout the Midwest. So you can find more programs like these on our website, which is energyevents.org. So the format for today's webinar is just anytime you think of a question, just feel free to drop it in the chat or the Q&A section there. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time for those questions and answers. So today we're super excited to welcome Andrew Butts here. Andrew is the founder of the Green Neighbor Challenge, which is a nonprofit that provides free digital tools to help U.S. residents find and access green energy programs and incentives. And Andrew, I'm going to guess you're going to tell us all about yourself and the Green Neighbor Challenge to start.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks for folks attending. Yeah, how about I'll just hop into the slides since I've got a short explanation of who I am and what the Green Neighbor Challenge is in there. So welcome to Save Money, Live Better. This presentation is all about I don't know if folks have heard about some of the recent legislation and changes that are coming to the tax credits. And then I also know a lot of folks are still curious about what's the deal, when am I going to get access to those home energy rebates. So we'll be covering tax credits and rebates, largely talking about the Midwest. And then yeah, just talking about different strategies for upgrading your home and taking advantage of the incentives available to you. So yeah, just a little bit about me. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I grew up downwind of the Pleasant Prairie coal plant with asthma. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I have a master's degree in energy policy, and I did my undergrad in operations management and communications. And I currently serve as the executive director of Green Neighbor Challenge. And we are an active member of the REAMP network and the Wisconsin Climate Table. The Green Neighbor Challenge, as Joanna was saying, is so we're a small nonprofit that I started back in 2018. We have an online toolkit to help people find the home energy programs and incentives available to them in their zip code. And so we got links. I assume this presentation will go out afterwards to attendees. But we got links to our tools for finding green energy, efficiency and electrification incentives, energy assistance, as well as looking at solar marketplaces. And largely what we do is we partner with other environmental orgs through networks to get word out about these tools. And then I help coordinate the Home Energy Navigation Working Group, which is a working group of environmental nonprofits as well. Okay, so jumping into it. What I first wanted to just share, just for context, is when we think about, transitioning energy, 42% of all of the US energy emissions come from the choices that are made in homes and around our personal vehicles. And so there's actually, while a lot of people feel like, we have to rely on other people to drive the energy transition, I actually think this gives residents an extraordinary amount of power to drive the energy transition and build an energy system that we all want. And so What I'm going to start with today is just a little quick. Many of you may already be aware of the Inflation Reduction Act and some of those incentives. But just for context, so the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, was passed in 2022 under the Biden administration. It's relatively new. It was aimed at reducing energy costs and other costs that were driving inflation at the time. And it was really the first major climate legislation in US history. It provided tax credits for energy saving home upgrades, home energy rebates for low and moderate income households. Those are the two we'll be talking about most today, but then also tax credits for developers, loan programs for industry, grants for cities, counties, states, grants for community-based nonprofits, funding for green banks, funding for community and multifamily solar. And unfortunately, just as of July 4th, a phased repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act was signed under the current administration. And so just to walk through those two big pieces that we're covering today, the IRA tax credits and rebates. So first, with the tax credits, there are a lot of different tax credits. And a lot of these are structured around, you can get 30%, a tax credit of 30% of the cost. In the case of home efficiency, so these blue ones that you see, you can get a home energy audit, electric panel upgrade, energy efficient doors, energy efficient windows, insulation. 30% of the cost of the material, up to $1,200. Heat pumps covers really two sort of things. So your home ventilation and air conditioning, so that's your heating and cooling. You can get up to 30% of the cost, up to $2,000 a year. Or for your water heater, if you switch to a heat pump water heater, that's 30% of the cost, up to $2,000. For rooftop solar, or even ground mounted solar, for that matter, solar and storage, you can get 30% tax credit of the entire cost, with no annual limit. So that regardless of the size of the system, you can still claim that. You can get 30% of it off. For vehicle credits, there's up to $7,500 for new EVs, and then up to $4,000 for used EVs or plug-in hybrids. And then there is also a sort of a minor and tricky to get one around the EV charger. So 30% of the installation cost there, up to $1,000. And so, as I already mentioned, there's a phased repeal happening. And so what we're doing this webinar about is to help people understand what's the timeline on these things. And there's really just two main deadlines here. One is September 30th. This is when you need to buy a new or used EV buy to receive the credit for new and used. So that's the 7,500 or 4,000. All of the others, everything else up here, all of these will be ending. You need to have those upgrades in service by December 31st, 2025, because at the start of the new calendar year, they'll no longer be eligible. So time is of the essence. If you want to save money and take advantage of these incentives, there's still time to use them. In terms of the rebates, so the Inflation Reduction Act provided federal funding to states to set up rebate programs that each state would operate separately. And it was designed to have states create two rebate programs. One was known as HOMES and one is known as HERE, each with a specific set of guidelines that states had to follow, but there's some ability for them to customize that. Every single state except for South Dakota has been allocated funding from a budget. The repeal of the IRA does not affect these allocations. So the rebate funding has not been repealed. However, each state must receive Department of Energy approval on each of their programs to begin the rollout of the rebates. States that did not get approval under the Biden administration have been facing many delays. But so far, courts have held that allocated funding must at some point be dispersed, and these programs can't necessarily be stopped over minor things. So a lot of these programs are still forthcoming, and I believe they will be rolling out, just not as quickly as we had hoped. So there were, as I mentioned, two types of rebates. So the first one we'll talk about is here. So that's the home electrification rebates. I just remember because there's an E in it in the acronym, that stands for electrification. And so when you look at the electrification rebates that states are rolling out, this is an example from Wisconsin here. These are technology specific. So there's a specific amount of money for specific technology. So heat pump water heaters is up to 1750. Space heating and cooling up to 8,000. Your electric panel up to 4,000. Electric wiring up to 2,500. Insulation, ventilation, air sealing up to 1,600. Heat pump clothes dryer up to 840, though this hasn't been rolled out yet in Wisconsin. And then electric stove or cooktop or range up to 840, also hasn't been rolled out yet in Wisconsin. The nice thing about using Wisconsin as an example is this matches up with the maximum federal guidance that a state can offer. And so I think this is going to be sort of the standard package that most folks see in their state. Those states can choose not to offer specific things. So these last two in particular are rather troublesome. Some states are just skipping over them altogether. Other states may adjust. They can adjust downwards some of these quantities. But the total that can be claimed, the 14,000, that can't go up. It can only go down, I believe. The other important thing to know about these electrification rebates, so it does require a fuel switch, meaning that you have to go from gas or propane or something other than electric to electric. If you're not electrifying by switching from a non-electric source to an electric source, then these rebates don't apply. So you can't necessarily get, go from an electric stove to an electric stove or an induction stove and qualify for these rebates. These are restricted to low and moderate income homes, the electrification rebates. And so that's where there will be these sort of standard guidelines around how much money you can receive based on whether or not you're 80% of area mean income, meaning mean or median, one of the two. These are going to depend on where you live, what that threshold is. But I encourage, a lot of people, that even, are fairly middle class may fall within 80%, 150% of area median income. And that you can access them. One last thing is that, while these, or I guess two things, while these amounts add up to more than 14,000, your total rebate can never be more than 14,000. And in addition, any of these rebates that you use cannot be used to meet the requirements for homes. So I'll jump into homes now. So homes is the other, whereas here is focused on electrification, homes is focused on efficiency. And so homes is structured differently. Rather than having specific technologies, it's a project of multiple things you might do. You might be planning multiple like insulation improvements and air sealing, and you could even include, switching out certain appliances in whatever your modeled project is. But you have to be able to demonstrate that the suite of upgrades that you're going to do can achieve a 20 to 35% or a 35% or greater reduction in a home's modeled energy use. if you can hit those thresholds, which you will, in order to, get this modeling done, you'll have to, you apply to the program and then they match you with an energy assessor who will come out and go through your home and figure out, what could be upgraded and what sort of energy savings would that achieve. So if you can hit one of these thresholds, then depending on your income level, you qualify for different amounts of funding. And the highest tier, which would be achieving 35% modeled energy savings for a household that falls less than 80% of the area median income, they would qualify for 8,000 or more. And in the case of Wisconsin, they increased it to 10,000. So states have the ability to increase this value, but not decrease it. And then the other important thing is, unlike the electrification rebates, homes is not strictly limited to low and moderate income homes. So households with incomes greater than 150% of the area median income are generally still eligible for some amount of money if they can hit this amount of energy saving reductions. So, and as I mentioned, you cannot use any of your here rebates to meet this modeled energy savings for homes. So, all right. In terms of where the rebates rolled out, so I've largely been tracking in the Midwest. I haven't been tracking everywhere. This is the last map that was produced, and unfortunately this website got taken down and has not been maintained by the new administration. So I had to put in a little green box for Indiana. But yeah, so Wisconsin has their rebates are open. Michigan, their rebates are open statewide. Indiana, their rebates are open statewide for both of those programs. Illinois is working on doing a homes pilot this fall with they're projecting a statewide launch either, late in the year or early next year. So that's coming soon. Kansas has also projected that they'll be rolling out soon. However, their website notes that they are waiting on Department of Energy approval, but they have been targeting a July launch. So they're already kind of past due, just waiting for that federal approval. Minnesota, Iowa, and Ohio, unfortunately, they have no estimated timelines available right now. However, a lot of these programs you can, when you get the slide deck, you can subscribe to get updates so that you'll know as soon as it rolls out in your state. And if you live somewhere else, just try Googling, your state home energy rebates, and that usually in the first 3 links you'll find your state's, whether it's their Department of Energy or some other energy related authority that's managing the rollout. There's usually a page that lays out the timeline. And so, yeah, I know there's a lot of tax credits, there's a lot of rebates I just threw at you. How do I, if I'm an ordinary resident and don't have photographic memory, how can I find and understand, all these tax credits and rebates? So there's 2 resources I want to share. One is the Green Neighbor Challenge. That's what I do. And so we produced an online toolkit that allows you to, explore things. And what I recommend actually is particularly related to tax credits and rebates is switching right on over to our Save Energy tool, the second tab up here. And then you can explore to your heart's content and learn everything you'd like to know about, what qualifies, what should I be wary of, how can I, find a contractor, et cetera, as well as the rebates are within the state and local incentives level. The other tool that you could use is Rewiring America's calculator. This collects some more personal information, but then provides actually kind of go a bit deeper than our database goes in terms of also including utility incentives in select states. So they've been working directly. A lot of utilities already have their own incentives, even beyond these IRA credits and rebates. So, next is, the next question people typically want to know is, where should I begin in my home? And the answer is every home is different. So I can't speak to every home, but there's some different strategies that you might consider that might speak to you more or less than others. So the three that I'm going to speak to is focusing on your oldest appliances, and that's just replacing things that may break soon, because who wants to not have air conditioning in the summer suddenly, or have, their water leaking in their basement and not have hot water. Things that generate really big savings. And so that could either be because the upgrade has a lot of energy savings over time, or there's big incentives up front to make saving money over time easier. And then big impact. These are, upgrades that dramatically reduce your emissions. There's obviously a lot of other motivations people might bring to upgrading their home in terms of looking at comfort, functionality, experience, or resilience. And as you think about these things, think about what can you afford in terms of cost. Do you have access to financing or, a line of credit? How long will projects take relative to the deadlines? And you may even find, electricians are in real short supply in your area, or you can't find a home energy assessor, but you can find an HVAC person. That may drive some differences for you. But yeah, so first, old appliances. If you're concerned about that and you don't know how old your appliances are, get a home energy assessment. Find a home energy assessor. A lot of these assessments, you're looking at, two, three, maybe $400, and you can actually get $150 tax credit off of the cost of that. They'll provide you a report. They'll tell you how old sort of all your appliances are, what needs to be replaced, and when. You can also perform your own home energy assessment if you're a DIY sort of person. I got a link here to a Department of Energy guide for how to kind of do your own little walkthrough in your home. And then, some certain appliances that you really don't want to fail, right, is your furnace. So if your furnace is between 15 and 20 years old, it's using up its life, you might think about switching to a heat pump. Same thing with the air conditioner. Also, these typically last about 15 to 20 years. So if it's getting up there, it might be time to, again, think about a heat pump. Nice thing about a heat pump is you can get a central heat pump that will basically upgrade your air conditioning and your furnace at the same time. So it's a unique thing we can actually start to move to a single appliance to solve both our space heating and our space cooling. And then in terms of your water heater, nobody likes their basement flooding. And they often do rust out at the bottom eventually. The typical lifespan of a water heater is 8 to 12 years. So they do get replaced quite a bit more often. And you might think about switching to a heat pump water heater in that case. In terms of big savings, this is, I think the hot water heater is just one of the most unsung heroes of the home. The typical hot water heater uses 20% of your home's electricity. It is the second largest, demand on electricity, but it's just this cylinder that sits in your basement usually, and people don't pay much attention. You can get 30% off up to 2,000, but typically a hot water heater, you're looking at 2 to 4,000, so you won't even use the full credit there. And switching to a heat pump uses 70% less energy, and according to Energy Star, saves the typical 4-person home $300 to $500 a year in energy. So it pays for itself pretty quickly. And then the beautiful thing about it is if you're, here in the Midwest and have a kind of humid basement, it actually works to dehumidify your basement as it operates, which is a really nice secondary benefit. Then, of course, in terms of, big savings, solar and storage, with that 30% credit, and there's no limit, The typical payback period of a home with good sunlight visibility, there's not trees blocking, is at this point about 10 to 15 years, and then the lifespan of solar panels is typically 25 to 30. The challenge right now is you need to start now. If you want to get solar, get quotes today. There's a link here to our solar options page, which can help you start getting quotes from multiple contractors quickly through Energy Sage, because this needs to be in service by December 31st. And from what I've heard, more and more solar developers are offering a backout clause. If you start a project and it can't be put in service by the end of the year, then you can back out of the project, no strings attached. So make sure you get something like that if you are pursuing that and trying to get it in by the end of the year. In terms of impact, if you just want to have, the biggest possible impact, and some of these are also, also goes with savings, is electric vehicle. Your personal transportation typically uses as much energy as your entire home. They're about roughly equal in the typical home, when you look at just like energy usage. And so again, $7,500 for a new EV or $4,000 for a used, or plug-in hybrid. I'll even, that's actually what I've got. This is my car, and despite being a renter and living in we're fortunately in a townhome where there's some outdoor outlets, and so I can actually just run an extension cord and charge that up, which is really nice. And then yeah, you can take these credits actually to reduce the purchase price at most dealers. You can transfer the credit directly, and then it makes it cheaper, so you don't have to wait till next year to get that credit back. And just to give an example, the average American driver drives 13,000 miles a year. And if you've got just a regular 25 miles a gallon, $3 a gallon, it's about $1,600 a year in gas. And by comparison, that same 13,000 miles will only cost you about $650 a year in electricity, which is another substantial savings over time. If you think you're going to keep this for 10 years, imagine knocking another $9,000 off the price relative to a gas vehicle. And so if you're links here, if you're looking for which cars are qualified as new EVs and which are qualified used models, you do need to make sure that you're buying a qualified model. These are the links to the government lists of what qualifies for that. But be sure you complete your purchase by September 30th and have those credits applied at the point of sale. And then, yeah, of course, big impact. You're switching your heating and cooling over to heat pump. So HVAC for the average American residents, it consumes 52% of home energy. So it's a huge, huge part of the energy we consume. And then, of course, solar. Solar has a huge environmental impact. So all of those things are all good options if you're looking at impact. Folks often, also ask about renters. Yeah, unfortunately, as a renter, there's not a whole lot of credits and rebates available to us. Some things that might work in certain situations is if you wanted to invest in, a portable heat pump or a window unit, you can still apply the tax credit to those, assuming they meet the efficiency requirements. You can also, as I mentioned, EV or plug-in hybrid. I think a lot of people aren't aware of how flexible plug-in hybrids are. I really love the Prius Prime we got because it can run on gas 55 miles a gallon, which is extraordinary. And then it can also run on electric for about 30 miles. So like I said, we're lucky to have those outdoor outlets available, but we don't have to depend on them. And then also a portable induction cooktop may be eligible for a rebate if you also hit the low, the LMI requirements and your state offers that. But that's a bit of a stretch. And fortunately, you can pick these cooktops up for $50, $60 And so actually this is my kitchen. We've covered up the gas stove with a big cutting board to give ourselves more counter space, and then sticking to all electric appliances. We got an electric induction stove, a Instapot, and an air fryer. So all of our cooking is with electric, and we've actually shut off the gas lines so that we don't have any gas leaking in our home. There was a really great webinar we put on a month and a half ago, about the dangers of natural gas in your home. And so I encourage you to check that out if you're not aware of some of the health hazards of that. Other things renters can think about doing is switching to a green energy program through the utility. Green Neighbor Challenge can help you find that. And then here's actually a link. Rewiring America has a guide for how to talk to your landlord about the rebates that they may be eligible for. But this is going to be limited to where there's, the tenants have to meet the low and moderate income requirements for landlords to qualify for those. And so getting close to the end here, if, this is a lot of information and it's really hard to sort through all these decisions one at a time for your home. You'll talk to contractors, they'll say something different, or they might be confused. If you want more support, feel free to stop by our home energy question and answers. These are drop-in, drop-out sessions. So show up for 10 minutes, ask your questions, and then you can leave and get on with your day. These occur the last Thursday of each month at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. It's me and Aaron Hansen. And Aaron is just an expert in all sorts of housing and building science topics. So I encourage you to try to stump him about energy efficiency or vapor barriers or whatever else questions you have. And so our next Q&A is August 28th. You can register for these upcoming events at Energy Events, and of course, check out any of the upcoming webinars or any of the previous recorded webinars. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. Love to, answer any questions folks have.
Yeah, so feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat. And I'll ask Andrew. Andrew, real quick, I was curious, why did South Dakota not get any funding? Maybe you said that in a different slide, but.
South Dakota sent a letter to the government saying that they weren't going to apply and they didn't want the money. They
All right.
Just yeah.
I thought maybe something was wrong with South Dakota. I was feeling bad, like.
No, if anything, it might. Yeah, well, it is the governor.
Is there an easy resource where people can know what the area median income for themselves is? So we said a lot, right? What you have to fall within an area median income, but I'm assuming it's different in every area.
It is different in every area. Yeah, I would say there isn't one best place, but the best place to figure that out is by applying through your state's rebate program, because the application itself is going to collect your address, and then they're going to have the most official, because there are different databases that calculate things differently. And so what matters is that you qualify by your state rebates program standard. So just apply, and they will tell you if you're not qualified. They're more than happy to do so.
You mentioned heat pumps a lot. Do heat pumps work well here in the Midwest?
Yes, heat pumps work well everywhere. Heat pumps work in Alaska, in Maine, and Canada. So heat pumps use different types of refrigerant in their systems depending on the climate that you're in. And you just what matters is sort of at what temperatures these refrigerants switch from a gas to a liquid. And so folks up here, in Wisconsin and even further north, the goal is just to get what is known as a cold climate heat pump. So something that has a sort of a lower than average refrigerant phase change temperature. But yeah, a lot of contractors will still try to steer you away from either they're not aware of cold climate heat pumps, or they try to encourage you to have a keep your furnace as a backup system when part of their incentive for doing so and saying so is a lot of contractors are just, they don't want to be called out in the middle of winter, or they're concerned about complaints. And so it's really just a way of, they get to install two things at once. That's more money for them now, and fewer potential complaints later. But yeah, for the I'd say and for anybody that's really worried about the cold snap, the negative 60-degree day that we had in the Twin Cities a few years back, I just always want to remind people that when the electricity is out, your furnace stops working. Your furnace can't run without electricity. And also in that case, when it was negative 60, the gas lines froze. And so people didn't have gas either. What they did have was electricity though, and that's where space heaters came in handy. So when we have those really cold days, sometimes the best, resilience thing you can have on hand is a few, $10 space heaters tucked away in your basement that you can pull out and spread around the house.
All right. Any other questions from folks? Andrew, I'm wondering if just one more time, could you pull up the slide where people can go to put in their zip codes, the Green Neighbor Challenge slide, just so that resource is up and people can write it down one more time.
Yeah. I don't know that the slide is helpful, but let me just copy the link here and I'll drop it into the chat.
Okay, that would be great. And for Rewiring America. So if you want to know where to start, both of these websites are fantastic. You just go to them, put your zip code or your address in. Rewiring America does take a little bit more of your personal information. And they will send you to and show you all the different incentives available for your zip code and region. Did I get that right, Andrew?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah,
Okay,
and I
good.
think Rewiring America might, I'm not sure. They might be able to tell you the AMI, where you land. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't checked that lately.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. This has been incredibly informative. I appreciate you so much coming and sharing your knowledge with us. If folks have questions, feel free to reach out directly to Andrew through the Green Neighbor Challenge. And I will be sending out some resources to those who have registered after this webinar. So, all right. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.